Hello there, Talkamaniacs. It's J-Ro here. The month of March rolls on. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, so let's jump into it. This is Independent Thoughts.
Independent Thoughts. Independent Thoughts. These mine. Independent Thoughts. Independent Thoughts.
So welcome again back to Independent Thoughts. It's J-Ro here. I did say we got a lot to talk about, so definitely let's jump into it, shall we? So when we last met, we had Manhattan Mayhem from Ring of Honor that had recently taken place back on the 3rd. Just this past weekend, we had the 16th anniversary show, that pay-per-view that was available, new champions crowned in SoCal Uncensored, which are now the 6-man tag team champions after a wild match with the Bullet Club. We have a new Ring of Honor World Title #1 contender in the villain Marty Scurll, who defeated Punishment Martinez. We have the return of former 2-time Ring of Honor World Champion and current Impact Global Champion Austin Aries, who returns to the company and has decided that he's collected titles in Ring of Honor before, and he's currently collecting titles around the globe. The one title that he hasn't yet collected is the Ring of Honor TV title, and it is something that Kenny King has that Austin Aries wants. We had Kenny Omega making a surprise appearance disguised as Burry the Bear before jumping Cody Rhodes after his brawl with Matt Taven, which led to an interesting segment of sorts with Brandy Rhodes. A lot of people have seen it. If you haven't, go check it out. I'm not really going to address it because I don't really find that there's much to address. We have new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, Mark and Jay, the Briscoes, defeating the Machine Guns to win the titles for the, I want to say, 7th time now? Is that possible? Actually, sorry, no, it's higher than that. It's 9 now, actually. 9 reigns, which is crazy. So clearly the record for the most reigns as a team and as individuals with 9. And since I mentioned that Marty Scurll is now the #1 contender for the Ring of Honor World title, he will be going against still champion Dalton Castle at Supercard of Honor 12 during WrestleMania 34 weekend. He'll be challenging Castle for the title during that show, as Castle retained over Jay Lethal in a fantastic contest to headline the show. Now, I know the Ring of Honor also taped their TV tapings the following night in Vegas on the 10th to air on their program over the next few weeks. If you want to go see what's going to go down, I mean, there's spoilers aplenty you can find on the web. I'm not going to get into that here. I'm going to try not to spoil shows for you guys. I want to make this show more about ramblings and such than it is about, just reading results from shows and saying, oh, I like the show, I didn't like the show, or worse, here's a whole bunch of spoilers going on. I mean, a lot of you guys that tune in are already followers of mine, and more importantly of Talkamanias and the wrestling community as a whole on social media like Twitter. So goodness knows that whenever any kind of news breaks, it's all over Twitter at faster than a forest fire, and it's all over the place, much like the news with Jeff Hardy example. Like, it's all over the web, everybody knows, it's huge already. So I'm going to try to make this show less about stuff like that and more about just sharing my thoughts, good, bad, ideas, whether they be positive or negative, what have you. That's the focus of the show. So I guess the first thing that's worth discussing is the fact that Austin Aries had made an appearance during the Ring of Honor pay-per-view and said that he was back to try to collect another championship because goodness knows he's got titles aplenty right now. And being the Impact Global Champion, some thought at first that was a bit odd that he would be that company's main title holder, and yet here he is on another company's program. But I'm not entirely surprised by this because Impact has made a very strong conscious effort to try to allow their talent to work everywhere, as much as possible. Not only though because they just do certain amounts of dates in a month, but also the more they can spread their word, the better off they are, and the better off the wrestling community is as a whole, I find. Now, there are exceptions to this rule, obviously. I know there are some guys who work for Impact that have exclusive contracts. Aries is not one of them. Therefore, because he has the exclusive he does not have the exclusive contract, pardon me, he is pretty much free to work within reason just about anywhere he wants. And for that reason, that's also why he holds titles in IPW UK. He's also the champion for Defiant Wrestling, formerly What Culture Pro Wrestling, for those who follow them on YouTube. As a matter of fact, on that subject, Austin Aries himself took to Twitter the following day on the 10th and mentioned that he actually said, quote, "If you are a champion in pro wrestling, it should mean that company believes in your ability and, more importantly, in how you do business. Every company I represent as champion knows my intentions and trusts me as a professional to do good business for them however I can." So you heard it right from the horse's mouth. Austin himself addressed it, and I think that that's a positive. I really believe that that's a positive for the wrestling community as a whole, for Aries himself, for Impact Wrestling, for the companies that their talent also do business with. We're living in the age where there's so many wrestling companies around. Now, mind you, there are a good section of fans who just watch product from the WWE. There's even, a matter of fact, family members of mine watch Raw and SmackDown. They'll catch the pay-per-views when they can. They don't even watch NXT. They don't watch 205 Live. So when I mention, oh, did you see this match with so-and-so, it not necessarily falls on deaf ears, but they don't necessarily know who I'm talking about because they don't follow all of the WWE's product. They just follow the stuff that's on TV every week. And that's okay, don't get me wrong. It's just for someone like myself who enjoys wrestling as a whole and who tries to consume as much of it as possible. I mean, within reason, of course. But someone who really loves wrestling and admires the art form everywhere and tries to follow it internationally to take in all of the, dare I say, the different flavors of wrestling, I guess, because there is something for everybody. I think that having Impact Wrestling and their talent be able to diversify themselves and work as often as possible for as many companies as possible, all of which have, the main objective in trying to do good, right? I think that, like I said, helps the wrestling community as a whole. And I think that generally the fans benefit from that more than everybody else because you get to see talent that you would otherwise maybe formerly not be able to see outside of that main company's spectrum. Example, with very few exceptions, some of the talent who work for WWE, like the vast majority of them are contracted talent who are on the road. Obviously, being on their main roster, they're on the road all the time. Some of their UK guys, right, because they're still building that subsection, let's call it, of the WWE, I don't want to say universe, but whatever, I just said it. So they're still building that United Kingdom section. So those talents, although they're technically contracted to WWE, have permission to work for independent promotions. That would be why you've got guys like, well, immediately I think of Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, Trent Seven, the guys from British Strong Style, as well as Mark Andrews and a number of other talents. They work for other promotions, not just in the UK, but over the, across the planet. So primarily they do a lot of work for Progress, but they also work for Revolution Pro, IPW, Defiant. As a matter of fact, I'm actually excited about this. My Talkmania cohorts just went to the IWS show last Saturday on the 3rd. They had a blast, which was great, as I'm sure you could hear too if you listen to the main show. And if you're not, what the hell are you doing? I highly recommend that you do. They talk about their experience there, seeing Rob Van Dam live, literally just a few rows away from him, the ups and the downs of the show. And during that particular show, the IWS actually announced that their next show coming up in April, they are having the trio of British Strong Style, Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, and Trent Seven at the next show. I believe it's called Unstoppable. There we go. I thought about, was it Unbreakable? Was it Unbeatable? I was like, no, Unstoppable. That's the name of the show. And that is coming up in April on the 28th, as a matter of fact. So if you're a Montreal wrestling fan, you got a pretty good trio of events coming up in those days. On Saturday the 28th, there's the IWS show with these guys that are going to be highlighted on the show. Then on the following Monday and the Tuesday, you've got the Raw and SmackDown live shows. I mean, you kind of can't lose on that one. That's pretty amazing timing, if I do say so myself, and I'm pretty sure my partners in crime are going to be headed to those shows, if not all of them, at least one of them. I'm going to try to hit the trifecta if I can, but it is 2018 and budgets are always an issue. And since we're talking about budgets and local shows and things like that, I guess now would be a good time to give you the quick friendly reminder that for those who are going to be or are within the Ottawa area and are looking to catch some wrestling this weekend, C4 is having their show The Departed this Saturday, March 17th at the usual venue, the Knights of Columbus on MacArthur Avenue in Vanier. I think there are some tickets still available, but that may change. So get on that if you're up for it this Saturday evening. Of course, I mentioned this last week as well, but Teddy Hart against Josh Alexander is, I guess, one of the feature matches of the show, as well as the C4 debuts of Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, and one of my personal favorites, the Product, David Starr. David Starr actually just had a hell of a weekend just recently in Germany for WXW's annual 16 Carat Gold tournament. For those unfamiliar, the 16 Carat Gold tournament is an annual tournament held by WXW, which is a 16-man single elimination tournament that usually takes place over 3 days. That tournament originally started back in 2006 and has been held annually, won by names, for one, both Chris Hero, the current Cassius Ohno in NXT, as well as Tommy End, currently known as Aleister Black, are two gentlemen who, the only two gentlemen who have won the tournament not just once but twice. And in other previous years, that tournament has been won by guys such as Bad Bones, Shingo Takagi from Dragon Gate, Walter, Sami Callihan, who made waves in WWE for a while in NXT and is now making a lot of waves in Impact Wrestling for, a number of things. Sami Zayn has won the tournament. I think he won it back in 2012. One of my personal favorites, Zack Sabre Jr., won in 2016. So it's a well-known tournament that is held in pretty high regard, and this year was no exception. As a matter of fact, the participants for this year, other than David Starr, of course, were Keith Lee, Avalanche, Chris Brooks, Alexander James, Lucky Kid, Matt Sydal, Emil Sitochi, Matt Riddle, DeMac, Travis Banks, Mark Haskins, Timothy Thatcher, Jonah Rock, who I saw for the first time recently in Progress, Marius Elani, and Absolute Andy. My pick going in for the tournament was either David Starr or Matt Riddle. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I was pretty close, I guess. Definitely worth checking that out if you can. I believe that their shows are available on their on-demand service, which is actually called WXW Now. And that service, I believe, is available for approximately €10 a month. And their events are put up live. I think some of them are live, and then they have taped events that end up there as well. I'm not as familiar with it as I am some of the other ones, but I've heard good things about it, and there's a very good chance that I might be checking that out pretty darn soon. WXW is actually also home to another one of my personal favorite tournament series, kind of a separate show in addition to the main shows that they do. These shows are called Ambition, which are single elimination tournaments as well. I believe it's 8 competitors all in one show, but the thing that makes it different about the Ambition shows is that they are more, dare I say, more of a shoot style wrestling presentation. So if you remember the days of UWFi in Japan back in the 90s, and there have been other promotions that have come out with similar types since then. Actually, the early days of Evolve Wrestling remind me of, and are similar to, I think, in my eyes at least, what Ambition puts out. And they just actually had, the reason why I bring up Ambition is they also just had Ambition 9 on the same weekend as the 16 Carat Gold in the same venue. And that particular tournament also featured some of the same competitors that were in the 16 Carat Gold, like David Starr, like Jonah Rock, like Timothy Thatcher. I believe there was also a super fight that took place. I think that was Matt Riddle and Walter, if I remember. I read about it a little while ago, and it kind of popped up in my brain as like, oh yeah, I might want to check that out in a little while. So that's on my to-do list as well. I also saw recently, I'm kind of deviating away, but since I was talking about Ambition, there's another group in the UK that had been putting up tournaments similar to this called Tetsujin. They had one a while back. Their original Tetsujin tournament had, I think, Walter was competing in it, Timothy Thatcher was competing in it, Jack Gallagher was competing in it. This is before he was signed to the WWE, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Brooks, a few other names. And I actually came across it because it was offered as part of my subscription to Demand Progress. So I thought, oh, I saw this one promotion with one show on there called Tetsujin Shoot Style. And I'm like, if this is, like, when I think shoot style, I'm thinking, okay, I'm like UWFi. I'm like, I got to check this out. I was not disappointed. It was very much a no-nonsense type approach where matches are only won by knockout or submission, so no pinfalls whatsoever. It gave it a very real, not kind of mixed martial arts type vibe to it, but still within a reasonable professional wrestling type presentation. It was really awesome show. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a long show naturally, because some of these matches will only go, less than 10 minutes. Again, considering the fact that these tournaments usually involve 8 competitors who have to wrestle, if you are in the finals, you're going to wrestle 3 times in one show. So the matches are fairly short and not as drawn out, but they are very entertaining. And if that's something that you're interested in seeing, make a note of it. So between Tetsujin Shoot Style and the Ambition tournaments from WXW, I think I've given you some homework, something worth checking out. And if you do, and if you're intrigued and you do check it out, if you like it or if you don't, just let me know. Just let me know that my recommendation did not fall on deaf ears, and let me know what you thought. I'm always interested to hear feedback on stuff that I recommend, and I'm always looking for recommendations too. I mean, I have a lot of content that I consume, and I'm trying to keep it relatively funneled, but I'm always open to recommendations. So if you've got a recent show or promotion that you think I should check out that I may very well highlight in an upcoming episode, by all means, hit me up. Between Twitter and Instagram, you cannot go wrong. Easy to approach, I'm easy to find, and I'm always fairly quick to respond within reason. So anyway, moving on. I'm actually going to veer off course for a minute here, if I may, and it is my show, so I guess I may. Hopefully you don't mind. Apologies if you do. I just wanted to take a minute to, thank you guys for tuning into the show from originally from the episode 1 up until now. I know we're only 5 episodes in. We got a long way to go, we may not be seeing any big numbers until we're hitting triple digits here, and I'm totally okay with that. That's perfectly fine. But I just wanted to thank you nonetheless, because if you are listening, it does mean the world to me, and I appreciate it. And I apologize for not really getting as much of these out to you as I would like to. Most recently, I had a bit of a downturn in some life events with my grandmother passing away recently, and then that was a whole, issue, and then we just had the funeral this past weekend, and in my personal life too, some employment stuff, things that I've tried to make happen, and they've kind of fallen apart and stuff, and I'm not saying this to like cry or complain, and I'm not looking for sympathy by any means, because everybody's got their own struggles. I just wanted to apologize to you, because I know sometimes projects like these show, my podcast and such, whether it be this one here, Independent Thoughts with the guys at Talkamania, or even my personal podcast, the J-Ro Show, which I really haven't done any content on in a while, they tend to suffer. Personal projects, creative stuff tends to suffer when you have life issues that come first. So just wanted to say sorry for the slowdown, but if anything, these recent events have kind of helped me start to get remotivated, and it is Monday, so, hashtag Motivation Monday, to kind of get myself back into that vibe of putting out content for you guys and engaging with you guys on Twitter and Instagram and what. And speaking of which, I just happened to check earlier and I've got nearly 300 followers now. That's amazing. I couldn't have dreamed as to ever having anything remotely close to what I have. So I thoroughly appreciate it. I really do. And if you continue to spread the word about me and about this show, just know that it means the world to me. I absolutely love talking to you guys, engaging with you guys in this wrestling community on Twitter. And my goal, really, I'm just doing my own little part to try to keep the community as positive as it can be. I don't want to dwell on stuff that some people have problems with. That's why I haven't really tweeted much about the Sami Callihan issue with Impact Wrestling and the accident that happened that led to Eddie Edwards getting injured and all this brouhaha that's come since then. Much like the most recent news with Jeff Hardy. I don't tweet about that stuff because who cares? You know what I mean? There's no need to continue to be negative. Accidents are going to happen. People are going to have issues. The world just keeps on turning. And I don't think it's necessary to continue dwelling in the negative and engaging in Twitter wars with people over stuff that is essentially out of both parties' control. Example, there's a lot of people that tend to tweet at people that I follow and followers of mine, people that I'm making friends with, and I see a lot of negativity and a lot of, dare I say, hatred in the Twitter forums and stuff. And these are all people that are part of the same overall Twitter community, the Twitter wrestling community. And I'm often baffled as to why things tend to be so negative and why everything has to be horrible, or either the greatest thing in the world or absolutely horrible. And, constant complaints of why won't they push this person? Why don't they use this person? Oh, this person sucks. They're overrated. Really, it doesn't necessarily matter. At the end of the day, talents that we're watching, whether it be on our TV screens, on our phones, on whatever it is, are essentially trying to live out their dreams. And their dream is to entertain you. And I don't think it's really necessary or justified to just lash out with unnecessary hatred. I wasn't trying to hop on my soapbox here and start spewing off about stuff like that, but it is something that I believe in, and I really believe that the wrestling community can be a positive one. And with all the stuff going on in the world, with political situations and just global issues those are really of primary concern and should be of primary concern, I don't think it's necessary that the wrestling community have their own little problems. I think, if anything, we as a whole, as the entire online wrestling community, should instead be banding together and be supportive of one another in defense of the art form and the entertainment form that we all love and enjoy. And I think that if we could set an example by being more positive than we are negative, I think that could hopefully eventually spread out into other communities and essentially get more of the population to be a bit more kind to one another. And in this day and age, I think we could all use a little bit more kindness, and it starts with you. So that's my spiel that came out of nowhere. So although it wasn't necessarily the most positive of notes, I feel that this may be the note that we should go out on. We covered some of the recent events. I shared some thoughts on some recent shows and whatnot. I guess all I can say is if you have the opportunity to go check out wrestling near you, in the next little while, by all means do so. Because every little bit that we all do, whether it be a ticket that we buy, at a seat that we fill at a show, to a piece of merchandise that we buy, these are all things that are supporting promotions and supporting wrestlers who are essentially, like I said earlier, living out their dreams and doing things that we enjoy because they strive to entertain us. And if you have the means and the time, I know everybody's circumstances are different, but if you have the means and the time to go out there and enjoy some live wrestling without having to spend a ridiculous amount of money, I highly recommend that you do so and contribute what you can to wrestling as a whole. So that said, I hope you do that this weekend if the opportunity presents itself. I will be back to you either later this week or again around this time next week with more of my independent thoughts. If you aren't already and you would like to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, you can do so. Instagram is @JustinRoberge. Twitter is @JustinSRoberge. I'm easily found there, and I'm more than happy to back and forth with you guys and share our good stuff. And until next time, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it very much, and I cannot wait to be back here talking to you guys on Independent Thoughts. Until then, all the best.